One of the questions that keeps coming up in my comments on a repeated loop is, where did the money go? The thing about this show, it's the most expensive television show ever created at this point. And you look at it and think, where? From inconsistent special effects to costumes that literally are repainted football helmets, there is a problem here. And I don't know what it is. The money seems to be going nowhere. So first things first, the costumes are a prime example. Everything in this show kind of looks costumey, and not in a high fantasy way, but in a I've gone down to the local costume department and bought some props in Poundland way. The show has a cheapness in its production design and special effects and costumes, which, I mean, even Xena Warrior Princess had better looking pieces than this. And I love Xena, just to say that. But, you know, the armour looks 3D printed. There is chainmail printed onto the fabric. That's a whole other thing as well. And then you look at the special effects. There are some beautiful CG shots in this series, and I won't lie there. But for every great CG shot, there is things like the wolves that look like video game FMV from the 2000s. There is inconsistency here, and that's another thing that seems to be very apparent. The inconsistency in terms of special effects, inconsistency in design, and it does feel like you've got a group of people who are separate teams not working together. Then there's the cast. Most, if not all of the cast in this series are not particularly well known. They're not big A-listers. And yes, I will say the Peter Jackson movie, most of the people in those films weren't particularly A-list or well known when they first did it, but there is a massive difference here. Amazon tend to like big stars to bring in the viewers, but there's, other than Lenny Henry, there is no one in this that really has much acting credit to their name, or well-known names, or even loosely known names. And I mean, for American audience, won't even know who Lenny Henry is, I don't think. And I mean, with Lenny Henry, in the UK, yeah, he's an actor, but he's more known as Dawn French's ex-husband and a comedian. That's it. Again, where is this budget going? There is a cheapness to this show, and there's a lot of, filming things out of order, which is common practice in film, by the way. But there is a lot of filming things out of sequence, and it shows because they'll be on exactly the same set in the same costumes from 4 episodes ago. The writers in this show are not particularly well known. There's no big writing names behind this. The showrunners aren't well known. No one in this series has particularly any of a name from them. And with its links to Bad Robot, there's red flags here anyway. But I keep looking at it and think this is a $1 billion television series. Game of Thrones did not even come close to that budget. Yet, Game of Thrones looked better. The costume, yeah, it had some bad moments. There are some bad. But overall, it was consistent. And that's also something that this lacks, consistency. Not just in terms of visuals, but also in terms of storytelling. But I keep looking at this. I keep looking at this series and trying to figure out what is this money being spent on. And I don't think it's being spent on very much. And I get it. You know, you're creating a TV show. You want to make sure you've got some money in the pot. But you can do a lot better with a lot less. I mean, I've seen BBC productions that look better than this. I've seen TV movies from the 90s that look better than this. The armour that popped up in Xena Warrior Princess had more weight than this. This literally looks like 3D printed. And the problem is, when the chainmail is also printed on fabric, on main characters, it's very visible. And there's also this weird matrixy wire work that looks really artificial. Again, there is a cheapness to this series, and I don't know where it's coming from. You have $1 billion. Why not use it and create something spectacular? And they didn't. They created something that wasn't great. And they're desperately trying to save it and desperately trying to say, well, it's a success. It's a success. It's not meant to be a huge talking point. It's not meant to be culture TV. It's just meant to be a small audience. You don't spend that, you don't put this amount of money in a project and say it's going to be for a small audience. There is, even, I think, my theory is at this point, is that most of the budget went into the marketing from the fake superfans such as Chanel Williams, who openly admitted to not watching it and loving the House of Dragons. That's on the internet, by the way. None of the people they've done, none of the influencers, none of the stuff has really helped this show, and a lot of shilling and paid for reviews are fascinating. Ultimately, this leads into so many questions, and the fact that now mainstream media are pointing out where is the budget in this. I'm watching the House of Dragons. That is a visually really rich looking show. The costumes have weight, the sets look lived in and heavy, barring that stupid chariot thing. I will say that is really driving me insane. And the CG actually looks good. Yeah, it has some moments like all CGI, but at least, like I said, there is a consistency to the design, there is a consistency to the look. Nothing looks like FMV. I don't get it. Again, $1 billion television series, but nothing behind it. I've seen cosplay fan productions of Lord of the Rings that look so much better than this. I mean, that stupid armour they have Galadriel in. Also, side note, she is tiny. She's like dwarf-sized in the terms of this. But also, on that note, inconsistent sizing of the actors. They change sizes between the scenes, so there's that. The editing is very rushed. Things just happen. There's no build-up, payoff, or anything. And yet, they've hired people that don't seem to have a name behind them. Why would you give something this big to a bunch of people that aren't well known, that have no real career behind them? Again, could it be money laundering? Could it be a producer situation? By the way, watch that movie. Both those movies are really good. Now I have Springtime for Hitler stuck in my head. But the whole thing about this series is it's missing something. There is a missing link to this, and I don't know what it is. And it's not just the stuff that I've talked about. It's not just the cheapness. There is something missing. And I don't get where this budget has gone, what it's being spent on, and why this is passable in terms of just looks. There's a lot in this that looks really unfinished as well. And a lot of the CGI backgrounds are beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it has its moments. But everything looks very still. And it, like, for example, a giant tree. It looked very still and very shiny. It looked like CGI. It didn't really have much texture to it. Again, I get the feeling there's many different teams and they're not really communicating and they're just doing stuff rather than a special effects department working together. And the costumes, like I said before. And I get it with the costumes, by the way, before anyone mentions this. Yes, for extras, background parts, put them in some printed fabric. It looks the part from the distance, fine. But main characters who are on screen, close up. Come on. Like, I don't get this. Not only is this show a failure in terms of storytelling and writing, it's a failure in terms of the inconsistent visuals, inconsistent costumes, and overall laziness almost. But again, you have this budget, why not get some people with some clout and some names behind it? That's the thing that got me. There's meant to be Lenny Henry? Come on. He's the most well-known person in this entire shit show, and that's not saying much. Where did this money go? Because I have so many questions on this that I will be here for like 5 hours rambling about. So tell me what you think in the comments below.